What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Guiding Keys, the story of Kingdom Hearts, presented by the Unlockables podcast. As always, my name is Eric. I have been your host, your guide through the wonderful world of Kingdom Hearts and the wonderful, wonderful mind of series creator and director Tetsuya Nomura. It means so much to me that you're willing to stop in wherever, whenever, in time and space you may be located to check out the show, see what is going on in the world of video games, or in the case of this mini-series, see what is going on in the world of Kingdom Hearts. I don't have too much to talk to you guys about at the top of this episode. I'm excited to say that as of this writing, this part will be the final part on Vanilla Kingdom Hearts 3. After this, we should have one part that I'm going to write about the Remind DLC, some of my final thoughts there, and then I'll have one final episode where I read the secret reports off and kind of link everything together and speculate about where the series is going from here, and that'll be a wrap on Kingdom Hearts 3. It's been a long time coming. I appreciate you sticking with me for the additional parts that I've decided to add to this specific game. I was not expecting it to be 7 parts, but it will be 7 parts. Originally, I wanted to just be like 4 parts, but as I started writing everything out and the script for this series grew longer and longer and longer, it grew to 7 parts. So we've got a lot of ground to cover to finish out the base game today. Let's dive into where I left off last time. If you remember last episode, I left you guys with a bit of a cliffhanger. If you remember, the Guardians of Light, our heroes, Sora, Riku, and the rest of the gang, were defeated by a swirling maelstrom of darkness, a force of nature, a gigantic F5 wedge tornado of shadows that had grown into an indescribable size and proceeded to wipe out all of the Guardians of Light. And the last bit of text we got on the screen before it went black said something to the effect of, "And so as it was written, darkness prevailed and light expired." The last cutscene I left you with after we got this ominous message, we returned to the room we saw at the start of the very beginning of the game, where we see a young Xehanort and a young Ericus continuing to play the chess-style game, which canonically is called Alba and Ater. You can actually buy the chess game set on the Square Enix store. It is very, very expensive, though. I think if I remember correctly, it's like $400 to $600. So it's a very, very expensive piece of tabletop decoration. And you don't even get the rules that teaches you how to play the game because it's kind of made up. So young Xehanort, as the gold pieces, appears to have the final silver piece of Ericus completely surrounded as he declares checkmate. But Ericus ignores that declaration as he opts to take his turn anyways, much to Xehanort's protest. Ericus proceeds to move his single silver piece back to his side of the board as Xehanort tells him he's sure that he won the game. Ericus smiles and simply tells him that there's more to light than meets the eye, and as he moves his one piece back to his side of the board, 7 new silver pieces miraculously appear out of thin air on his side, as Ericus says, some light comes from the past. I included this cutscene audio as a teaser for the last episode, so this is what it was referring to. This was the supposed conclusion of their chess game, which kind of coincides with the Guardians of Light getting wiped out. But as Ericus's move would lead us to believe here, there is more to come, and the end of the story is not quite written yet, as he moves his piece to his side of the board, and mysteriously, 7 new pieces just appear out of thin air as he says, some light comes from the past. Keep that in mind. After being seemingly wiped out by the darkness maelstrom in the Keyblade graveyard, we cut to Sora, who awakens in a world unlike any we have ever seen. It is a world that consists of only a flat plain of impossibly still water, stretching onto the horizon in every direction, under a blue sky dotted with clouds as far as the eye can see. The surface of the water plane is perfectly reflective of the sky, at times making it impossible to distinguish where the sky ends and the ground begins. And what's more is that Sora is completely incorporeal. He's translucent, light blue. He's see-through as he lays on the reflective surface. As he gets to his feet and wonders out loud where he is, the camera pans up and we see the title shot introducing us to the location, known simply as the Final World. If you remember back to the first episode, this is actually a part of where the beginning of the game takes place after Sora's at the deep dive, the Station of Awakening. He comes to this world and fights a dark side Heartless, so keep that in the back of your mind. As Sora continues to wander the endless expanse, he suddenly hears a voice call out to him, asking him, "Can't stay away now, can you?" as a ball of light descends from the sky. It lands in front of Sora, and in a flash of bright light, it takes the form of a creature we've seen before. It's Achirithi, the companions of Keyblade wielders of old that we were first introduced to in Union Cross. And if you're confused about that, go back and listen to the episode on Union Cross that precedes this one.
The name's Chirithi, and this is the Final World.
I'm Sora. What's the Final World?
There's nothing else beyond this. You've wandered here more than once before on your visits to the Station of Awakening, but I let that slide. The edges of sleep and death touch, and one can't help the occasional crossover.
Wait, death?
Yes, the natural end for those whose hearts and bodies perish together. But some persist and arrive here.
My heart and body perished? Does that mean...
Something is holding you here, refusing to let you go. You're hanging by a thread.
What about my friends?
I'm afraid that no one else arrived with you. And if they're not here, they're either gone forever, or they're clinging to the world you came from.
I'm going back!
Whoa! How exactly? You can't just wander out like your other visits.
What?
I told you. The other times you came here by your own choice. This time is very different. To become your old self again and return to the real world, you'll have to piece yourself back together in this world first.
Ah! Why am I in pieces?
What? No, not literally, of course. You're conceptually in pieces. On the inside, who knows? But on the outside, you're just fine.
Oh, okay. You kind of freaked me out there.
Oh boy. Usually, only a heart can reach the final world. But since you've clearly managed to retain some kind of form, that can only mean your body was cast into this world as well.
Okay, so then if I can find my body, that means I'll be able to go back?
Precisely. But there's a lot of you to find. You're going to be busy.
The initial quest for Sora to piece himself back together has him chasing after tons of multiple copies of himself that are running all over the area. So there's just like a ton of Sora stretching out to the infinite horizon, and you just basically like run into them and like piece yourself back together. Crazy meta shit that we're talking about here, but I absolutely freaking love it. It's like, you died? Nah, man, there's a chance that we can set this right. How about you at first piece together the broken parts of your body back together so we can figure out what we need to do here. We've gone full Kingdom Hearts here. So as Sora runs around and is piecing himself back together, in the same area there are what I can only describe as faint glimmering outlines of stars, and you can talk to them. These are supposed to represent hearts that have been unable to fully move on, tethered to the final world for one reason or another. There are two in particular that are interesting and you get unique cutscenes with. The first we're surprised to see is Naminé.
Sora?
Yes?
It's me, Naminé.
Naminé?
I'm so glad that you managed to hold on to who you are.
Why are you here?
I was in Kairi's heart, but then we were struck by a powerful darkness, and I woke up here.
And Kairi?
I can feel her heart. She's fighting with all her strength to keep you from fading away.
So the reason I retained my form in this place...
It's because she's holding you together. Go to her.
I'm trying, but what about you? I can't just leave you stuck here.
It's okay. Really. Kairi is where I came from. So when she's safe again, Kairi is where I'll return.
Naminé, I know that I'm supposed to thank you. The datascape doesn't count. I need to say the words myself. But not like this. You and Roxas can't tell me you're okay with this. I know how much you're hurting. I felt that pain through Roxas.
He's the one they all miss. It's not me.
Wrong! What about me? Kairi, Donald, Goofy, the King. Roxas too, he misses you. And someone else special I know won't let you down.
Sora, thank you.
Well, then I'm gonna go save Kairi, so at least you'll be free of this place. Okay?
Oh, wait.
Huh?
While sifting through memories, I spoke to Terra, the Keyblade wielder you've been looking for. He has a strong will, and it keeps him tethered to the realm of light. I'll try tracing that connection. Maybe that'll be enough to tip the scales in the other direction.
Huh?
Let's just say I've got your back.
That part of you? It reminds me of Kairi. Thanks, Naminé. Oh! That's not the official thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, see ya.
Naminé then gives us an interesting piece of information, saying that while she was sifting through memories, she was able to find and speak to the Keyblade wielder Terra, stating that he has a strong will that keeps him tethered to the realm of light. I mean, obviously we know that Terra's suit of armor became the lingering will, the embodiment of his will to fight back against Xehanort and one day reclaim his body. Naminé said that she's going to trace this connection to see if maybe that can tip the scales, whatever that means. Sora thanks her, but says it's not the official thank you, and he departs. The second one is more interesting. Sora goes up to a random star and begins to talk, triggering the cutscene, and, well, I'll just insert the audio here so that you can listen to it.
Hello?
Good day.
Oh, cool! You can talk!
You look like a person.
Oh?
How is it that you retain your appearance? Are you special?
I'm a little hazy on the details.
As are we all.
So, whose heart are you?
No one's anymore. They took away my name. Everything about me.
No way! They couldn't have taken away your heart.
Only because it pines for another.
Yeah? Someone's coming for you?
I cannot be certain. He's been changed beyond recognition. His heart replaced with another's. But were he to regain his old self again, he would be distressed by my absence. So I choose to wait here, where he can find me.
Oh. Good. You have to believe.
Believe? Oh, you mean know in my heart he will return, without any proof?
Exactly. Believe. I thought it was all over for me, but a friend of mine looked me in the eye and said, "You don't believe that." So, who did this to you? Heartless steal hearts, so... a nobody?
Somebody.
Really? Well, I wish I could help, but my situation's no better.
You must see to the tasks before you first.
The tasks before me? There's so many.
All the more reason for you to make an effort.
Yeah, you're right. I just wish I knew what to do.
Here you are on the brink, and yet you hold on to who you are. You possess a strong sense of purpose, and in that purpose you will find direction.
Thank you. I'm really glad we met. You cheer me up. I hope that friend of yours finds you soon.
Thank you. Me too.
Oh, hey! If I see him, I'll tell him that you're here. What's his name?
This being is known as the Nameless Star. It is a female voice of a heart who is holding on to hope that someone will come for her. This, I feel, is another breadcrumb for Kingdom Hearts 4. That's what most of the community believes. That's what all the evidence is leading us to believe. But we do know, and I'm not sure whether the community figured this out or Nomura dropped a hint in an interview, that this is a person that we've either met before or are familiar with. So the Nameless Star tells Sora she's waiting for someone to come and get her, but that this person is changed. They have a different heart, and they aren't who they used to once be. Before he leaves, Sora asks the Nameless Star who this person is, and that he'll pass along a message if he finds them. The star draws close and whispers a name in Sora's ear, which we do not hear, and there is no text on screen to let us know who this person that she's waiting for is. But we see Sora's reaction, and he is surprised to say the least. So he has a surprised reaction that would lead you to believe he is at least familiar with the person that the Nameless Star is waiting for. But that is not a plot point that gets resolved right now. He says nothing else, but gets up and leaves the Nameless Star to continue finding the lost pieces of himself. After going through the endless plane of the final world and through a veritable labyrinth that's straight out of an MC Escher painting, Sora manages to find all of the missing pieces of himself and make himself whole once again, taking a physical form as opposed to like a fully translucent one, which he just was. Chirithy once again appears before Sora, asking since he is whole, why he is still here. And Sora counters with another question, asking Chirithy that since it still looks like itself, if Chirithy wanted help finding all of its pieces, to which Chirithy responds that it doesn't work the same way for itself. Sora presses further, asking if Chirithy is waiting for someone to come and rescue it, to which Chirithy replies, sort of, but also saying that the person doesn't remember it anymore, and stating that he is much happier with his new friends, he being the person that the Chirithy used to belong to. Well, Sora doesn't take this answer seriously and promises to come back to visit Chirithy since they're now friends. Typical for Sora, that's just how he is. We're friends now, I'll come back to the edge of death and visit you once again. Sora begins to walk off, but after he takes a few steps, he turns back and asks Chirithy for a hint as to how to help his friends and leave this place. Chirithy mentions how Sora has already learned the power to restore a heart after it's been lost, the power of waking. And when Sora asks if that is the same as the power of waking, Chirithy replies maybe? Like, it doesn't know, and encourages him to give it a shot. Sora clenches his fist, holding it to his heart, saying that this will take all of his heart, as he summons his Keyblade and opens a keyhole that appears on the ground in front of him. He approaches the light emanating from the open keyhole, turning back to look at Chirithy one last time, who encourages him to look for the light in the darkness. As Sora leaves, Chirithy utters one last phrase under its breath, "May your heart be your guiding key," and Sora vanishes. The screen cuts to black, and as it transitions to the next scene, we see the world from Sora's point of view as he is on his hands and knees, staring at the ground. He's arrived back at the exact moment the swirling maelstrom of darkness devoured the Guardians of Light, arriving back just in time to see Riku make his final stand as the darkness swallows him and then comes for Sora. Except this time when the darkness takes Sora, he doesn't arrive back in the final world, but rather finds himself flying through a dark abyss, and as he comes to, he sees a bright light in the distance, which he heads towards, heeding Chirithy's words, I guess, to follow the light in the darkness, shouting Riku's name as he reaches out for him. The light grows to fill the entire screen, causing Sora to cover his eyes, and when the light subsides, Sora finds himself on the steps of Olympus, Mount Olympus, the first world we visited in our adventure. What's more, Jiminy is with us for some reason, urging us that there's no time to wait, that we need to find the others ASAP. I don't really understand why Jiminy is with us. He wasn't present in the final world, and it seems kind of dangerous to bring him along to the final confrontation, but he has to chronicle everything, so Jiminy is there, leading us to believe that Sora is at least restored to his full self, whether or not we're still in the Keyblade graveyard, whether or not this is like a figment of Olympus in the final world. Not really sure, but that's where we are. Sora enters Olympus, and it isn't long before we see the translucent form of Riku, just floating there, unresponsive. Before we can reach him, however, a terrifying-looking Heartless appears. It wields a scepter and looks like what I can only describe as like a type of Reaper. It stretches out its hand and pulls Riku's heart from his translucent form, wrapping it in chains and fleeing with it. This Heartless is what's known as a Lich, and we learn this later, but I'll describe it to you now so you have context for the scenes that are happening. It's a special kind of Heartless whose purpose is to usher hearts into the darkness, into the dark abyss where they belong, I guess. Sora gives chase, cornering the Lich and fighting it until it flees, releasing Riku's heart as it retreats into a dark portal. Sora pauses as he watches Riku's heart float into the sky and basically disappear, and somehow Jiminy knows that this isn't the problem and that Riku will just appear where he fell just like Sora did. Again, I have no idea how he knows this, and urges Sora to go after the Lich as it will lead him to the others. It seems to be ferrying these hearts down into the depths of darkness. As Sora and Jiminy dive into the dark portal, we're taken back into the abyss, and we see the stained glass platforms representing each of our friends' hearts surrounded by shadow. As we plummet into each of them chasing after the Lich, by the way, and this scene's very reminiscent of like the dives you were doing in Dream Drop Distance when you were like diving into the sleeping worlds. It's kind of like that. So again, kind of symbolically linking that relationship between death and sleep. But like I said, as we plummet into each of them chasing after the Lich, we fight it more times as it tries to take our friends' hearts into the darkness. Each time we save a Guardian and restore them to where they fell. Aqua, Ven, Goofy, Donald, Mickey, and Lee, we rescue the whole gang. We rescue Lee last in San Francisco, defeating the Lich permanently so it can no longer escape. And we've rescued all of our friends' hearts with The exception of Kairi, for some reason. We don't see her there. But before they can think on it further, young Xehanort inexplicably appears.
All that gallivanting through the sleeping worlds, and yet you learned nothing.
What?
Dream by dream. You nearly buried yourself in the dark of sleep, and now you're at it again. The Lich you've been fighting, it's not like other Heartless. It exists to usher hearts down to the depths of darkness. If you chase it, you will condemn your heart to that same abyss.
You're wrong. My heart is strong.
What do you think the power of waking is? It's for traversing hearts to reach worlds, not for traversing worlds to reach hearts. There's a high price to pay for wielding such power foolishly.
So what? You're worried about me now?
No. There's no saving you.
Huh.
You've paid the price, and it lies at the bottom of the abyss.
I put the audio in, but this scene is actually super important, so I will break it down for you. Young Xehanort appears to taunt Sora, reminding him of the time he dove so deep into sleep he couldn't get out, saying that the Lich ushers hearts into the depths of darkness, and that if Sora continues to chase it, he will suffer the same fate again. Sora dove so deep into the depths of darkness of sleep, he could not get out. Xehanort basically saying that if he follows it down there again, he's not going to be able to get out again. He then gives us the most interesting tidbit about the power of waking, stating that it is for traversing hearts to reach worlds, not for traversing worlds to reach hearts. He then leaves Sora with an ominous warning, telling him that there is a high price to pay for wielding such power foolishly. He walks away, telling Sora that he's already paid that price, basically saying it's only a matter of time. At the urging of Jiminy and a well-timed phone call from Chip and Dale, which I'm not really sure how, Sora makes his way back through the darkness to the Keyblade graveyard, following the light through the darkness when he runs into Kairi and reunites with her. It turns out that Kairi was the light he was following all along, and that she was the reason he didn't completely fade away, because she believed he wouldn't. Also, another cool nod to the strength of connections and that whole theme. So, Kairi was the person who was keeping him tethered in the final world and basically keeping his form together, basically through the power of their bond and the belief that he would not fade away. I guess that she didn't get completely wiped out by the darkness Heartless Maelstrom because she was either to like return herself or maintain her form. Maybe because she's a princess of light, a pure heart of light. I don't know. That doesn't really get elaborated on. But yes, she's basically the reason that he was able to survive it, which I think is kind of a cool story moment, even though it doesn't really make a lot of sense, like when all this shit is going on. And then as they fly back to the Keyblade graveyard, she takes his hand to guide him there, telling Sora that he is safe with her. Oh, a really touching moment because she promised to protect him and she kind of kept her promise. Intermission time. Let's explain what's going on because a lot of crazy stuff has just happened. Everybody died, but then Sora arrived in what is basically purgatory and managed to piece together back the shattered pieces of his body and soul and then use the power of waking to chase down his friends' hearts from being taken to the underworld and then rescue all of them. Let's see if we can explain just a little bit about what is going on, right? After the devastating loss in the last episode, Sora arrives in the final world. The final world is a place where you go when your body and heart perish together, but there's some reason tethering you there, preventing you from passing on. Like I said, purgatory in the Catholic Christian sense of it. The final world borders the realm of sleep and the state of death. linking closely the concepts of sleep and death, which we've mentioned before, which means you can accidentally go to the final world while in the realm of sleep or doing a dive to the heart. Chirithy confirms this by saying Sora has been there before, passing through when he does a dive to the heart. Again, we see this in the beginning of the game. Sora was able to leave this world because he came there voluntarily during his dives to the heart because of sleep shenanigans, but the reason he can't leave it now is because he came here involuntarily when his heart and body were destroyed. But his body and heart must be present and anchored in the final world since he is able to restore his body and leave it once again using the power of waking. And again, he's anchored there because of Kyrie's belief that he would be fine and that he would be okay. So what is the power of waking, right? We've seen it in its simplest form probably, which when it was used to wake up Ven's sleeping heart. That would be a literal interpretation of the power of waking. It does what its name suggests. It is the power to awaken a sleeping heart. But since the states of death and sleep are closely related, it is also possible to use the power of waking to restore a recently deceased heart. And this is what Sora is doing when he's chasing down the Lich Heartless that is ferrying all his friends' hearts to the end. He's using that connection of his friends' hearts to traverse to the worlds where they are and restore them. Now you might think that's super convenient. The power of waking seems as convenient as time travel. With time travel, all these characters can be here and there are no consequences. With the power of waking, all these characters can be restored to life and there are no consequences. And I would say, yes, dear listener, your logic train is right, but this is the logic train of Kingdom Hearts and it is constantly threatening to derail. So hang on here, because what young Xehanort tells us is incredibly important. Young Xehanort tells us the power of waking is also the power to traverse hearts to reach worlds, meaning that you can use the connections between hearts to reach other worlds. We know this is true because we've seen Sora do this multiple times in Kingdom Hearts 3. When he first goes to Olympus, they're sitting in the gummy ship. He's like, I don't know what to do. And then he says the line, may your heart be your guiding key. And his heart basically leads him to Olympus where he needs to go, because that's the little hint he gets from Yen Sid. You should go where there's a true hero. And his connection to Hercules allows him to travel there. That is the power to traverse hearts to reach worlds. Meaning you can use the connections between hearts to reach other worlds. There's also an inverse ability, meaning that you can traverse worlds to reach hearts, meaning that if you're unable to have a connection with the heart or need to get to that heart, you are able to traverse the world anyways to reach that heart, which is apparently what Sora's been doing chasing the Lich. But apparently wielding the power in this way has unintended and severe consequences, as young Xehanort warns us. We're not really sure what the intended consequences of using this power are yet. It will be revealed to us by the end of this episode. But apparently, you're only supposed to use the connections between hearts to travel to those worlds. You're not supposed to use the power of waking to bend reality to go to a world where a heart might be, I guess, which is going to make sense in the way it's used here in just a second. What the hell is Chirithy doing here? We have to do the second half of the mobile game to learn this information, but remember, it is revealed to us that Ventus was present for the events of the mobile game, and I will let you know this before I tell you. This is his Chirithy. That will be explained in the second part of the mobile game, which come after this. What is Sora doing? He's using the power of waking to chase after the hearts of his deceased friends and restore them, and he can do this because power of waking is linked to sleep, sleep is linked to death, and that he can use the power of waking to restore a recently deceased heart. And he's returning them to the point in time where they fell to change the outcome of what happened. Like I said, this works because death and sleep are linked, but it appears this is not natural, and the power of waking is not meant to be used like this. you might think, well, how is that any different than from what young Xehanort is doing and what Xehanort's doing and bringing all these people and versions of himself from all across fucking space and time? The difference is because by the established rules of Kingdom Hearts time travel, when all these time traveling hearts are done here, they go back to the time that they came from and live out the lives that they're meant to live out and have no memory of what happened in the future that they went to, right? Because the timeline must be preserved. You cannot alter the events. If the events only happen if they're destined to happen, right? Destiny is never left to chance. In this way, the Kingdom Hearts timeline is preserved and time traveling doesn't allow the timeline to fracture into like a million different pieces. Basically saying that things in the Kingdom Hearts timeline are dictated by destiny and are meant to happen the way that they are meant to happen. So the fact that the Guardians were wiped out by the power of darkness meant this is what was supposed to happen. This was the canon way that the Kingdom Hearts timeline was supposed to go. But Sora used the power of waking to basically fly in the face of destiny and return his friends to the point in which they fell to try and change the outcome. And this kind of ties back into what young Xehanort was saying. And I'll elaborate more on this when we do the Explainer episode and when we do the Remind DLC. So Sora doing this is not the natural order of things. And Xehanort actually doing his time travel shenanigans is actually following the natural order of things. We're not going to elaborate on that anymore. We've got more story to get through, and we're going back to the Keyblade Graveyard. So after this quick music break, let's continue the story. I know you probably still have a lot of questions. Returning to the Keyblade Graveyard, and after a bright flash of light, Sora and Kairi land back in the Keyblade Graveyard together, and Sora is pleasantly surprised to see that all of his friends have been restored. And this appears to be a moment in time just before they were all wiped out by the darkness. And they all seem to be aware that this is what happened, that they actually failed, and Sora gave them a second chance by basically abusing the power of waking. Determined that things will be different this time, the Guardians charge forward once again to challenge the organization. Okay, so we've seen this scene before. As the Guardians rush forward, they once again find their path blocked by Terra Xehanort, and the scene begins to play out just like it did before when the Guardians lost horribly. After revealing himself and taunting them all in the exact same way he did before, Terra Xehanort goes to rush Ven as he did when he knocked him out of the fight, except this time there is a violent clash just before he reaches Ven, and an explosion of dust. And when the dust settles, we see the Keyblade of Terra Xehanort was blocked by the lingering will, Terra's former suit of armor that is animated purely by his will and desire to stop Xehanort. How does this happen, you might ask? Remember, in the final world, we just talked about it a few minutes ago, when Sora talks to Naminé, she says that she was able to make contact with Terra via Sora's memories when she was doing memory shenanigans in between Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories and 2, and that she would try to trace that connection to see if the outcome could be changed at all. Turns out this meant summoning the fucking lingering will, causing it to arrive and intervene in the fight, changing the outcome, which surely won't have any unintended consequences for meddling with time. The lingering will engages Terra Xehanort using moves from the actual boss fight against it. It's super cool. Turns its Keyblade into a whip and a gigantic cannon that it uses to blast the absolute fuck out of Terra Xehanort. As the battle between those two rages on, Ven is determined to help Terra, but Aqua stops him, saying that they have to deal with something else first, as the legions of Heartless begin flying overhead to form the massive storm of darkness that wiped them all out the first time they were here. The demon tide begins to swirl, sucking in all the other Heartless, and nobody's in the area, growing to a massive size like it did before. The Guardians step back nervously, with Donald and Goofy asking what they should do now. The outcome is likely just to be the same thing, their collective demise. Determined not to let the same thing happen again, Sora defiantly declares that he will stop it as he rushes the literal force of nature, Darkness Tornado, leaping towards it as a tendril shoots forward to, once again, wipe him from existence. There's a flash of white light as Sora covers his eyes, and when he's able to open them, he's in a temporary white void facing a person who has their back turned to him. This individual has white hair and a red scarf, shorts, a short-sleeved jacket, and is about as tall as Sora. As he turns, we recognize him. It's Ephemer from Union Cross. Sora wouldn't know this. We, the players, know this. He asks Sora if he needs some help, and as Sora is confused, the light fades. Sora finds himself back in the Keyblade graveyard, and as he looks up in the sky, he sees something incredible. The dead Keyblades that litter the Keyblade graveyard have begun flying through the air, glowing in a bright light. They form a stream of Keyblades that fly through the air and begin to circle the massive tornado of darkness before making a close pass at Sora, to which he jumps up on one of the Keyblades, riding it like a fucking surfboard, and directs the massive Keyblades towards the heart of darkness. What happens next? Despite some of the complaints I've had about this game and mixed feelings about it, is my literal favorite moment in the entire game. Top 2 literal favorite moment in the entire game. One of the best moments in the entire series, and one of the most unique moments in all of video games. I have not found a comparable moment like this in video games anywhere else, at least not on the scale of a AAA game like Kingdom Hearts 3. As Sora directs the massive Keyblades towards the Tornado of Darkness, we switch back to gameplay, and the left side of the screen fills up with reaction commands in order to start attacking the darkness with the Keyblades. Like, it's reaction commands from the menu to the top of the screen. And each of their reaction commands is a name. And the name is a username of someone who played the mobile game Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. There was a lottery event to get your name in Kingdom Hearts 3, and by fulfilling certain in-game criteria in Union Cross during the lottery, you got chances to get your name in the game. And this is where it happened. The names of the winners are fans, players, community members who became the reaction commands that Sora uses to defeat the Demon Tide Tornado of Darkness. They are the names of the fallen Keyblade wielders whose Keyblades were left behind after the Keyblade War, the light and hearts of the past arriving in time of greatest need to help Sora and the Guardians. The Union Cross players that won this lottery were the literal light from the past. Those players helped tip the scales in favor of Sora and the Guardians. This is so fucking cool. What other game would do this? What other game would make players such an integral part of the story? A massive turning point to help Sora overcome the very thing that defeated them all the last time they were here. Every press of a reaction command hurls a stream of Keyblades, shredding the darkness in front of it, literally shrinking it before our eyes. After we get through the names of the 100 Union Cross members, we have one final reaction command, simply called Union Cross. And in the next cutscene, Sora and the stream of Keyblades streak through the heart of darkness, piercing it and causing it to completely disappear from existence. Sora lands and the Keyblades of Light dissipate as they are no longer needed. The Guardians stand there trying to process what had just happened. And Aqua mentions that it was the Keyblade wielders from long ago, Ven stating that it was the light of the past, which is what young Eric has said when he was playing the chess game, what he said to Xehanort when all of his pieces appeared, kind of tying that in a nice loop there. We're not stopping, though. There's no time to rest. After a triumphant victory over a literal force of nature, a new figure appears as the dust begins to settle. And stepping forward to now challenge the Guardians is the Dark Riku replica, the same one we encountered in San Francisco. Although, in this scene, Mickey assumes incorrectly that it's the possessed version of Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1. This part kind of annoys me, as the Dark Riku summons a gigantic visage of Xehanort, made of shadow that looms over the entire party. Oh, and Zigbar just decides to show up too. He steps out from the shadows and tells them how the organization has to be sure they won't fail a second time, and they have to prove it to Xehanort one more time before they can carry on, which, why? We've already proven ourselves. We did the big battle at the start when we got here. We literally fucking died, and then Sora came back, and then we used the light of the past to defeat the fucking gigantic shadow tornado. It's why do we have to do this song and dance and throw another roadblock again in between us and having the showdown with the organization? The Zigbar leaves everything in Dark Riku's hands, and he powers up even more as the shadow of Xehanort spreads over the sky, causing thousands and thousands of Heartless to begin to fall from the sky again, which we just did this song and dance. We just defeated a giant tornado of Heartless and then fought a giant fucking legion of Heartless at the start. Now this is the third time this is fucking happening. The Legion of Heartless surround the Guardians as they fight back to survive. Mickey prepares to take drastic measures and use all his powers to stop time so they can escape. Remember, it's established that he has time magic. He did it in Dream Drop Distance. He's stopped by Riku, saying that he won't have the strength for the final battle if he does that. The situation seems hopeless once again when suddenly there's a beam of light that comes out of the sky, and who should appear in front of the Guardians than Master Yen Sid. That old wizard finally decided to get off his freaking chair and do something for a change. He uses this powerful light magic, and he carves a path through the Sea of Heartless. This is just parting the Red Sea. He bids the Guardians to advance while he holds the enemy back, with Donald and Goofy agreeing to stay behind to help Master Yen Sid. Sora protests, wanting his friends to come with him, but they tell Sora they will catch up with him in a little bit. Sora and the rest of the Guardians charge forward to finally confront Xehanort and the real organization. The Guardians reach a point in the Keyblade Graveyard that I feel like we've seen before. It's the intersection of four roads that form a cross, or I guess an X if you looked at it diagonally, which seems appropriate given the circumstances. The fields of dead Keyblades are sticking out of the ground for miles around. Sora and friends stop as they see, approaching them, Old Man Master Xehanort, at last, flanked on each side by 12 figures in black robes with hoods drawn. They come to a stop, and Master Xehanort speaks.
Today, we join these other wielders and leave our mark on fate. I have waited patiently, but together, we shall unlock the Keyblade War's secrets. Now we forge it, the ultimate key, the Keyblade.
To accomplish this goal, Xehanort summons his no-name Keyblade, and he strikes the ground as lines of patterns of dark energy spread across the ground. Walls begin to rise literally out of the floor, sending dead Keyblades airborne as massive labyrinth of stone forms around the Guardians called the Skein of Severance. What a name for a final area in a Japanese RPG. Fun fact, with some definitions here, the definition of skein is a tangled or complicated arrangement, state, or situation. It can also relate to the length or thread of yarn loosely coiled and knotted. The definition of severance is the action of ending a connection or relationship, so it makes sense thematically that this would be the cryptic name for this labyrinth, I guess. A single stone pillar rises higher into the sky, atop of which sits Xehanort, ready to observe the coming clash. This is the place where the final battle will take place. There are gigantic arenas connected by winding paths, which are flanked by tall walls on both sides. This is meant to split everyone up and have several gigantic battles to take place rather than just have like one showdown between everyone at once. So I have a few thoughts on this section, which I'll save for my wrapping up episode. On one hand, like I said, we're jamming everything into this one section, a massive showdown with every member of the organization, and it's hype as fuck. I mean, any complaints I have are kind of ruled out by the fact that this is like one of the most hype moments in all of video games. But on the other hand, it kind of feels a little bit rushed, and there are just like a bunch of resolutions that are about to happen here that don't feel earned or just kind of feel like, oh, we need to wrap this up, so let's wrap it up. For some reason, the Guardians don't stay together, but run off in different directions to fight battles when they are outnumbered. You don't split the party. I mean, bad things happen when you split the party, and they just decide to all run off and split the party. So basically, the next several series of parts I'm going to take you through are the battles. There are several battles that take place, like I said, that are just like gigantic arenas connected by the labyrinthine hallways of the maze that you traverse. And you can do some of these battles in different orders, but I just literally did the battles in the order that of the cutscene movie that I watched on YouTube as I was writing my notes for this episode. So battle number 1, you have a couple of different options as you navigate the maze. You can pick from a few battles to do in whatever order. But like I said, this was the first fight in the video I was watching. And Sora rushes over to help Mickey first, who is literally fighting a 4-on-1, which seems a little bit unfair, getting jumped by Luxord, Larxene, Marluxia, and Xemnas like all at once. And Mickey is holding his own pretty well. He's dodging attacks and blocking. He gets to do some cool flips. We get some cinematics of him before Sora runs over to help him out. You have a 3-on-2 boss fight here. Xemnas is just kind of like floating in the back, watching ominously. You start the fight, but it gets interrupted like halfway through when Xemnas gives Luxord a power boost, which allows him, he traps Mickey in a playing card, making it a 3-on-1 fight against Sora. The gimmick in this fight is that Luxord remains hidden until you find his card on the battlefield that he is hidden in. Because of this, he has incredibly reduced health, but you're constantly being attacked by Marluxia and Larxene as you try to find his card. You want to knock Luxord out of the fight first, because when you do, you get Mickey back for the rest of the fight if you do this. And then from then on, it's a 2v2 as Mickey and Sora take on Marluxia and Larxene. This is kind of nuts considering that in a game like Kingdom Hearts 2, the Organization 13 fights were crescendo defining moments during the story and were always kind of pinnacle challenges. And here we're fighting them like there's an organization liquidation sale, like everything must go. Xemnas literally pisses off halfway through this battle, so you don't have to contend with him yet. So as you defeat each of the organization members, one by one, they each have a send-off moment that will trigger in the middle of the fight as soon as you defeat them. And they get to have like a one-on-one talk with Sora. And like I said, these cutscenes take place as soon as you defeat one. So if you defeat Luxord first, the battle will stop, play the cutscene of him and Sora having like a talk as Luxord fades away. Some of these scenes will serve as kind of mini redemptions for these characters, and others are just a period on that specific organization member's relationship with Sora. So I guess it's kind of cool. I won't put in each audio clip to keep the runtime of this episode manageable, but I'll summarize each interaction unless I think the clip is really, really impactful. I'll put it in the episode. So like I said, you defeat Luxord first. Luxord commends Sora on his ability to play the game, because that's the guy's whole personality. He's a gambler, he's a gamer, He plays the games, and before he fades away, he does something that is one of the more interesting things in this part of the game. He tosses Sora a playing card. We don't see the contents of the card, and Sora asks what it is, to which Luxord replies, a wild card. He bids Sora to hang on to it, telling him that it could, quote, turn the tide. This is interesting as we actually don't get a resolution to this in Kingdom Hearts 3. Sora takes the card, telling Luxord he'll play him again when they're just regular guys, because Luxord's obviously going to be recompleted. And Luxord said he would like that very much. Then we have Larxene. When you defeat Larxene, she falls to her knees in disbelief that she was beaten again by Sora. But she says that even this is preferable to becoming that old geezer's heart tank. Sora is surprised, asking Larxene that if she was so opposed to being a vessel for Xehanort, why go along with his plan, and tells her to look on the bright side, that she'll be recompleted again. Larxene says she was just playing along for the ride because of someone else, and when Sora asks who, she coyly puts her finger to her lips and says it's her secret before fading away, still not informing us of what Larxene knows or how she's connected to this story in any way, but we'll learn that in a little bit later episode. And then we have Marluxia. Marluxia's scythe falls to the ground as he begins to laugh. As he puts his hand to his forehead, he laughs at the irony that apparently here at the end, his memories are coming back to him. Sora asks him if that laugh is genuine, and Marluxia responds by saying his heart is remembering how to feel, and that he's on the cusp of reclaiming his real identity. Marluxia thanks Sora as he fades away. So remember, these three were grouped together purposely because they were told by Xemnas that they had a connection to the ancient Keyblade legacy. We don't know what Luxord's connection is, but we know that Marluxia and Larxene appear in the mobile game Union Cross as characters named Lauriam and Elrena, Keyblade wielders chosen by Master Ava to be members of the Dandelions. After the fight, Mickey tells Sora that he's just going to go after Xemnas, not even bother helping anybody else, and Sora states that he's going to help the others as they part ways. 3 members down, 10 to go. We arrive at Skyne Battle number 2. Sora arrives at the site of the next battle to see Riku fighting both his Dark Replica and Xigbar, as Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, is doing the same thing that Xemnas did in the last battle and just watching from a distance. He doesn't really do anything in this fight. He just makes the arena a little darker and then he leaves. So cool. Thanks for that, Ansem. This fight is pretty standard. Dark Riku has some of the moves that he had going all the way back to Kingdom Hearts 1, and Xigbar has some similar movesets to the stuff he's done over the course of the entire series with his gun shenanigans. Of course, we defeat them, so here are their endings, which do tie in to some interesting story moments. When you defeat the Dark Riku, remember it's the Dark Riku replica, this is where the reveal happens that this isn't Riku's past self from when he was possessed by Ansem, but rather the Riku replica from Chain of Memories. But I've been telling you that's who it was the entire time. And that matters because of the next part. Remember that Riku had met his replica in the present in the Realm of Darkness and was conversing with it on the beaches of Destiny Islands in the last episode before we showed up for this conflict. That Riku replica emerges from inside Riku's heart, striking the Dark Replica and taking the darkness and I guess the heart of Xehanort out of the replica, leaving nothing but the empty replica behind. It's literally just a puppet person now. Riku urges his copy to take the vessel and it declines, saying the world already has a Riku, also saying there's someone else who needs the replica more. And Riku understands that his replica is saving Naminé, leaving the vessel for her, sacrificing himself to remove the darkness from it. In this way, the Riku replica's original purpose from Chain of Memories, when it was given the false memories of Naminé and set against Sora in order to protect her. Full circle moment for a plot thread that I feel like we didn't really need closure on, but hey, now we have a way to save Naminé, and the Riku replica kept its promise, and that's really great. You can pretty much sum up the scene, and I'll quote one of my favorite YouTubers, King K, did a video on Kingdom Hearts 3, and the specific line he uses to summarize this part, he says, Riku flew out of Riku into Riku to defeat Riku, or something along those lines. And That's literally what happens. And if you're in the Kingdom Hearts universe, that sentence actually makes sense. And it's that crazy. On to Xigbar. Xigbar's scene is interesting, so I'll include the audio because of all the organization members, he's been a part of this plan since the beginning, and at every turn he's always let on that he knows more about what is going on than he actually admits or says.
Figures. If I had a Keyblade, it'd be different.
Like you're actually worthy to use one?
Oh. I am worthy.
What do you mean?
The old coot promised to bequeath me his. Why else do you think I would ever put up with all his nonsense?
It'd be wasted on you.
As if.
It's a short audio, but it gives us some interesting reveals. Xigbar dropping to his knees insists if he had a Keyblade, things would be different, and also mentions that the only reason he went along with all of Xehanort's plans is that Xehanort apparently promised to bequeath Xigbar his Keyblade. He then teleports to the top of the labyrinth wall and stumbles back, falling off the other side to his apparent demise. The only reason I say apparent is that every other member of the organization disintegrates and disappears in one way or another. Xigbar falls off the wall out of sight, and we only see his weapons, his guns that he left behind, disappear. We don't actually see Xigbar disappear. This scene is framed this way for an important reason. Maybe we'll circle back to it. Just keep in mind, Xigbar, we didn't see him necessarily disappear. After the battle, Riku tells Sora to leave the replica for now and that he's going to go after Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, while Sora carries on to the next fight, next set of friends to help. So yeah, 2 more organization members down, 8 more to go. That math check out? Yeah, 8 more to go. Sora arrives at the next arena to see Kairi and Axel, who are struggling against Saïx and a hooded figure wielding a Kingdom Key Keyblade. That's interesting. After a quick boss fight, we get an intermission that sees Saïx in his Rage Moon form that he uses in battle quickly overpower all of our 3 heroes. That's when after we fight them and the Keyblade person with Sora. Axel manages to deflect a blow that knocks him to his knees, and Saïx approaches his friends, his fearsome maul raised overhead ready to strike a final blow, when Xemnas appears to confront one of his former most trusted organization members.
There was a time when I trusted you to deal with traitors. And now your betrayal outstrips them all. What final words do you have for your superior?
Well, let me think about it. How about you were never my superior?
Ah, ever the rogue pawn. Knocked from the board early in the game. Utterly useless and forgotten.
Are you kidding? Do you know how popular I am? I got loads of people rooting for me. Sorry, boss. No one axes Axel. Got it memorized?
Is this supposed to be a Keyblade? Or is it some sort of joke?
Xemnas really tries to do a number on Axel's confidence here, calling him useless, forgotten, a rogue pawn. And Axel, again, in a bit of what I like to think of as fourth wall breaking, basically tells Xemnas he's super popular, which he is with the fandom, and tries to attack Xemnas with his Keyblade. Xemnas very easily catches it and then does a mini blast that causes it to despawn, although the implication in this conversation is that it was destroyed, but Axel then has it in a later scene, so I don't really know what's going on here. Regardless, Xemnas summons his lightsaber laser weapons that he has that he's famous for, and he steps forward to basically kill Axel when suddenly the hooded organization member who was wielding the Kingdom Key grabs it to stop him, which is kind of like an insane thing because they just grabbed a laser and there is like smoke coming from their hands. The voice of the hooded figure speaks, and it is female.
Changing sides again?
We need him alive. You know that.
We only need his heart in order to forge the key. We do not need his soul. Oh, but that's right. You were friends. Then, you take his life.
Who are you?
She steps forward, holding her keyblade within inches of Axel's face as he asks who she is, on the cusp of remembering something important that he's been trying to remember for the entire game. Sora steps in front of Axel, placing a hand on her keyblade and lowering it.
Don't do this. Wait. It's all right. You can stop now. It's all right.
Xion.
Sora then speaks her name, telling her it's all right, that she can stop now, calling her Xion as Xion's theme plays in the background. Xion begins to cry as she grabs her head in clear pain at the conflicting memories. Xemnas is not pleased and teleports in front of both of them, kicking Xion back into Sora and causing her hood to fall, finally revealing her face and black hair. When her face is revealed, Axel grabs his head as the memories of his old friend come rushing back. Xemnas approaches to strike Xion down. Axel makes one last attempt to stop Xemnas, grabbing his foot to try and stop him, but Xemnas dismisses him with a swift kick to the face. His path is unimpeded as Xion lies on the ground. Xemnas raises his hand to strike the final blow. Suddenly, there's a flash of light, and we see a heart leaving Sora's chest and flying off into the sky. And moments after, a beam of light streaks down, striking the ground where Xemnas was as he dodges the attack. The arena is obscured by dust, and as it begins to settle, we hear a familiar voice speak as a theme we haven't heard in such a long time begins to crescendo in the background.
Hands off, my friends.
It cannot be.
Roxas!
My turn.
Roxas.
This is impossible. Where did you get a vessel?
Same as you.
Same how?
Most of the organization's members, they traveled here from the past as hearts. And you had replicas ready and waiting. One for each of them.
Who told you?
I owe my return to many. Some of them people you knew.
Ansem the Wise. Xehanort.
And others too. It seems you're not as good at winning over people's hearts as you think.
Ah, I see.
There was one last thing I needed in order for me to be whole again. A connection. Sora helped me find my way back here. To my friends.
Roxas!
I don't need hearts. I will scatter them all to the winds.
It's motherfucking Roxas. He is back. How did he get back, you ask? Well, it's really quite convenient, as it required some perfect timing. Ansem the Wise sent over the replica that was brought to them by Demyx, and at this time, Sora used the power of waking in combination with the connection Roxas felt with his friends, Axel and Xion, to return to him. So, literally the moment Roxas's heart left Sora's body, the replica appeared, and the Roxas was able to enter it, as the replica had been prepared for him using the data Ansem the Wise had on Roxas from the digital Twilight Town. Even though this is like a little shaky about how Roxas comes back to life, this part is fucking hype. Remember when I said during the Union Cross thing that happened with all the names of all the players that this is like my top 2 moment? This is the other moment. This moment fucking rules. I love Roxas. He's been gone for too long. He gets a fucking epic return here. I know I'm swearing a lot, but like between my criticisms and my hype, like just oscillating back and forth, the swear words are flowing. So I apologize. And the thing I love about Roxas' personality as opposed to Ven is that it's a little more serious, a little more colder. Now, you also might be realizing how the F is Xion back. They destroyed her in 358 days. Nobody remembered her or anything like that. So it turns out that Xion is back in the same way that Roxas is back. The organization had all of the data on Vexen's replica program, and remember, Xion was a result of Vexen's replica program. She was meant to be a replica that was filled with Sora's memories that they could control, and then they would have a Keyblade wielder that they could fully control, unlike Roxas, who was like his own person. So they were able, part of the reason that young Xehanort was in the Toy Box world and Dark Riku was in San Francisco, was to see if creating Xion in this way from data, the data they had and the replicas that they had, was possible. Because if you remember, young Xehanort was in Toy Box trying to figure out how inanimate puppets were able to like come to life and like grow hearts, and Dark Riku was in San Francisco trying to figure out if hearts could be like contained in data. And they don't tell you that in the game, but in doing the extra reading and research, you kind of put that together. And that's how they were able to like restore Xion to be one of the members of the true organization. Xemnas is not pleased by this development at all. And Roxas explains to him how he was able to return. Xemnas pulls a really dick move here. He teleports behind them and grabs Kairi, saying that he's basically taking her because they have enough lights in their ranks, which this pisses me off because as soon as Kairi starts to get some agency of her own, she gets kidnapped again for the 3rd time and just basically taken away. Xemnas teleports away with her, leaving Saïx to fight everyone in a 1v4 battle, which I think is kind of hilarious. It ends up being a 1v3 because Axel is too hurt to fight, but Xion tells him not to worry, that Roxas will fight in Axel's place and that she will fight for Kairi. And here we have the main boss fight against Saïx. I love this fight for several reasons. First, it's thematically appropriate because Saïx was the one who gave Roxas and Xion so much trouble in 358 days. So it's incredibly cathartic and appropriate that they would be the ones to fight him. Second, Roxas is a powerhouse. He is out of his goddamn mind in this fight. If you basically want to, you can sit back and watch Roxas and Xion solo Saïx by themselves, but especially Roxas, who just goes to absolute town on him with his dual Keyblades. Third, the song that plays during this fight is probably my second most favorite piece of music in the entire series, titled Hearts as One. This single piece of music represents the entire series so well and perfectly captures the ability of Yoko Shimomura and all the additional composers on not only Kingdom Hearts 3, but Kingdom Hearts to add emotion and storytelling into a piece of music that complements the visual scenes and gameplay you see with your eyes. Hearts as One combines 4 different songs into a single theme, using the most triumphant version of Roxas's theme that we've ever heard, combined with the most triumphant version of Xion's theme that we've ever heard, combined with a brief moment of the Organization 13 theme, combined with Sora's theme carried by the horns in the background. so much story in this piece of music, and the shift from the normally sad themes of Roxas and Xian to their uplifting and triumphant counterparts is stunning. Stunning. Having a portion of the organization theme play underscores both of their old histories as parts of the original organization, and that organization theme is overshadowed by their now uplifted themes representing their reclaimed identities. Afterwards, when the dust settles, Syx is disappearing, having been defeated, and Axel is able to have an honest conversation with his former friend. Syx reveals that he's held some resentment toward Axel since Axel made friends with Roxas and Xian, and held the belief that Axel left not only him, but this mystery girl that they'd mentioned before behind and forgot about them. Syx admits that it was jealousy that drove him, and he and Axel say their goodbyes as Syx fades away in his arms, but he'll be recompleted, so it's okay. After the battle finally concludes, Axel tells Sora to go help Kairi, and Sora agrees. As he heads off, he wishes them all good luck. And here we have one of the most touching scenes. To me, it's my favorite scene in the game. It's so touching. As the Sea Salt trio is finally reunited after all this time, Axel and Roxas take a moment to look at one another, both of them wondering what comes next as Xian begins to cry. Roxas goes to comfort her, and Axel says he should have brought some ice cream as he rushes forward to embrace both of them. Two more members down, well, one member and Xian switch sides, 6 to go. We're off to our fourth organization battle in the sky. Sora finally catches up with Aqua and Ven, who appear to be having a tough time battling Xehanort and Vanitas, which understandable because Vanitas and Xehanort are two of the toughest boss fights in all of Kingdom Hearts history. For as much pomp and circumstance / extra scenes the previous fight had heralding the return of Roxas, we basically go right into the fight against these two, and there's no interruption. So I'll give you the breakdowns of their scenes and what happens when you finally defeat them. The scene when you defeat Vanitas is both interesting and kind of underwhelming considering he was at one point a major villain. As Vanitas begins to fade away, his mask cracks as pieces of it fall to the ground, and Sora finally sees for the first time that Vanitas looks just like him. Sora and Ven basically try to redeem Vanitas, asking him why he chose darkness, Ven arguing that neither one of them chose to be separated from one another, and that they should be free to choose light, darkness, or whatever path they want. Vanitas, defiant to the end, says that he did choose, and that he's darkness, and he simply fades away. The scene with Terra Xehanort is more interesting as it's tied to the fate of Terra. At first, it appears like we've defeated Xehanort as he collapsed to the ground, and even speaks Aqua's and Ven's names as they rush forward to pick him up. He begins to scream in pain as he grabs his head, the inner conflict between Terra and Xehanort still clearly taking place, and while this is happening, there's an explosion of darkness from Terra Xehanort's body that results in dark chains blasting out in every direction, grabbing Sora, Aqua, and Ven and hoisting them into the air. Xehanort rises to his feet, grinning an evil grin as he begins to violently shake Aqua and Ven until they basically pass out, and basically taunting them, telling them that they are never going to get Terra back. Sora can only cry out helplessly as Xehanort lifts Aqua and Ven up, ready to literally slam them into the ground and just kill them with brute force, which is kind of brutal. But before he can, Ven lets a tear fall from his eyes, and in a weak voice he says, "Terra, I kept my promise." As Terra Xehanort hurtles them towards the ground, this is where stuff gets crazy, and actually it confirms a long-running fan theory about Terra. As Aqua and Ven plummet towards the ground, Ven's words must have struck some kind of chord because The dark bodyguard that we've seen Terra Xehanort and Ansem Seeker of Darkness always use in their boss battles appears behind Terra Xehanort without him having called it, and it rushes forward, grabbing Aqua and Ven before they slam into the ground at terminal velocity. The dark bodyguard takes the chains and breaks them, releasing Sora, Aqua, and Ven, much to the annoyance of Xehanort. So this is a long-held theory that fans had about Terra, and this confirms it. It was always suspected that the dark bodyguard, which is canonically known as the Dark Figure, was actually Terra, or rather a vessel containing Terra's heart. And this next sequence confirms that theory as true. After rescuing Aqua and Ven, the Dark Figure begins to claw at the bandages that cover its mouth, after attacking and grabbing Xehanort by the head, immobilizing him. The Dark Figure rips the bandages and is able to speak, saying one line over and over, slowly at first, but repeating it faster and faster. "One day, I will set this right," which is the last line that Terra speaks at the end of Birth by Sleep. Sora sees his opportunity as the Dark Figure holds Xehanort aloft, pointing his Keyblade at him and emitting a beam of light that strikes Xehanort in the back, kind of holding him in place. The Dark Figure lets go as a flash of light emanates from, there's like a heart-shaped hole in his body, and we see a heart emerge. It's the heart of Terra. As Terra Xehanort remains immobilized, the heart of Terra rushes forward and re-enters his body, causing a blinding flash of light to illuminate the entire area. When the light clears, the body of Terra slowly falls to the ground, where Terra lands on his feet. Gone is the white hair and yellow eyes of Xehanort possessing the body of Terra. His brown hair and blue eyes have returned, and Terra has reclaimed his body from Xehanort at long last.
Aqua! Ven!
Terra? Is it you?
Yeah. You never stop lighting my way back.
You're here.
I heard you too, Ven. You found me, just like you promised.
The Wayfinder trio is finally reunited, and with the return of Terra, we've returned all the lost hearts that have been hurt by Xehanort. As it was told in the journal in Recoded, their hurting will be mended when you return to end it. Sora, standing by and kind of watching all this, tells Terra to take care of Ven and Aqua so they can rest and recover. Terra nods, with Aqua saying they will catch up to Sora in a minute. 2 more organization members taken care of, 4 more to go. We arrive at last, the final confrontation in the Skein of Severance. Sora arrives on a high, flat platform alongside Riku and Mickey, and above it all stands Master Xehanort on a high pillar of earth, observing the battles as they take place. The wind picks up, blowing the dust around, and as it settles, we see 3 of the remaining organization members stepping forward to confront the Guardians. It's none other than the 3 closest aspects of Xehanort: Ansem Seeker of Darkness, Xemnas, and young Xehanort.
The 13 darknesses and 7 lights have clashed 9 times, yielding these 9 keys.
Keys?
We are 4 short, but those 4 keys will be produced here and now.
Yeah, sure. And what makes you think there'd ever be any way we'd help you with that?
Huh. You forget I plan for every eventuality.
Kairi!
If you do summon Kingdom Hearts, we will defeat you. And we will close it again.
Perhaps. That is, if you survived that long.
And it is here that we have maybe the most insane boss fight in the entire series, as you fight Ansem, Xemnas, and young Xehanort at the exact same time in a 3-on-3 battle with Riku and King Mickey at your side. The community has named this battle so lovingly the Nort Court, because you're fighting all of the aspects of Xehanort at once, and I fucking love that name. This is an absolute insane idea for a boss fight. Hey, what if we took the 3 major aspects of Xehanort, who all served as final bosses in each of their respective games, and made them into one fight at the same time? This fight is absolutely nuts, and from what I've seen on it in critical mode, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. The hype in me absolutely loves this fight. It's so fucking insane of an idea to like bring back all the old final bosses from all the major games and have them be like their own boss fight. I know like the time travel thing kind of cheapens the story and their deaths and stuff, and they just be like, oh, we can bring them back for the final game here. But at the same time, I don't really care because this is so hype and it's so incredible and I love it so much. It's just absolutely nuts. Similar to the other organization fights in this section, every time you defeat one of these aspects of Xehanort, you get a cutscene with them as they fade away, and it serves as kind of a bookend to our heroes' long-running relationships with each of these major antagonists. I'll put in each of the audio for them because they are major bosses. They deserve to have at least one last appearance in this series, considering we've spent so long with them and they've caused us so much trouble. And we'll start with young Xehanort, arguably the most irritating, as his final words are the most interesting.
What's so funny?
I told you. There's a high price to pay for all of this.
And what price would that be?
I'll go back to my time and live out my life. But Sora, you're done now. Your journey ends here.
What?
Goodbye, Sora. Your time in this world is...
I would say that young Xehanort's final words are the most dire and ominous, as all he can do after being defeated is kind of laugh maniacally and tell Sora that basically he's done for and his time in this world is over. Once again, repeating the line that there's a high price to be paid for what he's doing. So far, this is just an empty threat, but the fact that he's repeated it twice makes us wonder if Sora is going to have some consequences for his actions, i.e. literally rewriting the way events happened and restoring his friends. And after that, young Xehanort just disappears. Next, we have Xemnas.
Bested yet again.
I know that you have a heart. What do you feel? Was it worth it?
I feel the emptiness where my companions once stood. I took them for granted. And now I have nothing. My first surge of emotion in years. For as long as I can remember. And it's loneliness. Do you see? A heart is just pain.
Pain is being human, Xemnas.
Really? It must take incredible strength.
Xemnas' end is interesting and more personal, as it kind of ties him back to the character he was in Kingdom Hearts 2, expressing how after all this time he finally feels a surge of emotion again, but it's the emotion of loneliness. He concludes that to have a heart is to feel nothing but pain. Sora tries to convince him by saying to feel pain is to be human, with Xemnas commenting that it must take incredible strength to live such an existence before he fades away once and for all. Stoic to the end, I like this portrayal of Xemnas as kind of an unfeeling, melancholy antagonist, as it gives his character dimension and relatability. And last but not least, we have Ansem, Seeker of Darkness.
Ansem.
What a journey you and I have had.
You know, it's strange. I think I'm gonna miss you.
Your strength is vaster than darkness. I knew I never stood a chance. Part of me wanted to defy my fate. But when the others betrayed us, I found I did not care. And then, nothing else seemed to matter anymore.
Ansem.
What? It is time to move on, boy. There is more to seek. So go forth now and seek it.
I find it appropriate to end with Ansem. Our long Kingdom Hearts and Guiding Keys journey started with him. It seems only appropriate that it would end with him. He and Riku have one final moment considering they've had so much history together, and at the end, he simply tells Sora that there's more to seek, so go forth and seek it, as he fades away once and for all. I don't think it's as meaningful as young Xehanort's, but as far as things coming full circle, this is the perfect way for him to go out. Our conflict with the aspects of Xehanort began with Ansem, and it's only right that it should end with Ansem. After this clash, Xehanort reveals that he has 12 of the 13 keys needed as a result of the clashes between light and darkness to forge the Keyblade. Sora, Riku, and Mickey are like, if we just don't fight you, you can't claim the last key. But of course, Xehanort being Xehanort has a backup plan for everything, and here he reveals a kidnapped Kairi, causing her to appear right in front of him. And of course, this works because Sora will do whatever he can to rescue Kairi. It coaxes Sora into action as he rushes to save her. He runs up the side of the massive pillar that Xehanort is standing on, but he doesn't reach Kairi in time, and with a quick strike of his Keyblade, Xehanort slashes across her back, causing her to crystallize and then shatter into many pieces. This enrages Sora as he reaches the apex of the pillar, swinging his Keyblade down, which Xehanort easily deflects, sending him back down the walls of the labyrinth. Somehow this single Keyblade strike counts as the final fight between light and darkness and produces the final key Xehanort needs to forge the Master Keyblade. And in a rather unceremonious cutscene, all the keys kind of swirl together and form the Master Keyblade that we've seen before, and it just appears in Xehanort's outstretched hand. The moon-shaped Kingdom Hearts appears in the sky above as Xehanort summons it, and a beam of pure darkness emits from the tip of the Master Keyblade as Xehanort asks Kingdom Hearts to reveal its true form to him. Shadows begin to engulf the heart-shaped moon as darkness begins to rain down on the Keyblade graveyard in a never-ending barrage. Sora falls to his knees, crying at the loss of Kairi, but Donald and Goofy finally catch up to him, lifting him up and encouraging him. At this time, all of the heroes, guardians, and main protagonists of the story have caught up, as well as the full Wayfinder and Sea Salt trios reunite with the rest of our characters so that everyone is gathered together in one spot. There's a quick funny part where like both Ven and Roxas look at each other, and that's kind of funny because they look exactly the same. Nobody here knows what to do, and they all just kind of stand there. But Mickey says they still have hope, and Riku comes up with a solution. I have to preface this next part by saying this. I don't know why this works. I don't know how this works. I don't even know why Riku comes to this conclusion or what exactly happens here. But Riku figures out a way that they can trap Xehanort. He goes on to recount how Xehanort is basically a being that transcends space and time due to his time travel shenanigans. Riku then says that because of this, Master Xehanort is basically a portal and that they can use that to trap him. Mickey asks Aqua to help him and Riku do this plan to like use him as a portal to trap him, considering that she's the only other master here, with Mickey saying they need Aqua's help to push him out of the world. Sora comes up with another plan, however. He tells everybody to let him handle Xehanort. He'll do the portal plan, and the rest of them can use their Keyblades to help keep Kingdom Hearts closed as long as possible. Kind of seems like he's taking the loss of Kairi a bit personal, but his logic makes sense. Kingdom Hearts is a big threat. If they have everyone else take care of it, Sora, Donald, and Goofy can confront Master Xehanort. They step forward to enact this plan, but before they do, Xian stops Sora and approaches him. She pauses for a moment, putting her hand on her heart and telling Sora that she can feel that Kairi will be all right. Sora smiles and thanks her. The various Keyblade wielders hold up their blades, and one by one, little specks of light begin to appear on the surface of the dark purple moon that is Kingdom Hearts. Xehanort, meanwhile, is oblivious to all this as he continues to hold the Master Keyblade aloft, like examining it. Sora, too, points his Keyblade into the sky, aiming straight at Master Xehanort as a beam of light fires from his Keyblade. By the time Master Xehanort can react, he's pierced by the beam, and what happens next is that one of those pinkish purple spiky spheres that are the challenge portals that are dotted around Kingdom Hearts 3, they're also in Dream Drop Distance, like comes out of his chest, and then Sora, Donald, and Goofy turn into a ball of light, then enter that portal, disappearing alongside Master Xehanort. Again, I have no idea why or how this specific element comes into play, where they just decide Xehanort's a portal and we can use that to like get rid of him. I guess you could make the argument that Xehanort serves as a portal in the sense that his time traveling selves used him as an anchor to travel to the future, and that he has had his body torn apart and recompleted during the course of his schemes. And I guess you could say that Sora used the power of waking to create portal to a world with connections in Xehanort's heart. Because remember, the power of waking is following hearts to reach worlds, as young Xehanort put it. But this like just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's super confusing as to how or why this works and why they did it like this. But they produce a portal out of Master Xehanort and use it to push him out of this world / plane of existence, I think. Yeah, it's a pretty wild concept even for me. It's like not even elaborated on. Riku just says this and everyone's like, oh yeah, we could do that. That would totally work. And I thought those spheres, those portals, those spheres we saw in Dream Drop Distance and now in Kingdom Hearts 3 that like lead to challenges were like just gameplay things. I didn't think they would be plot relevant when I was doing the challenges in Dream Drop Distance or in Kingdom Hearts 3, but what do I know? Yeah. they like turn Master Xehanort into a portal. Absolutely wild. When Sora, Donald, and Goofy reappear and look around, they find themselves in an unfamiliar location. Well, at least to them, we've seen it before at the very start of the game. They're surrounded by white architecture, a towering ring of a city with windmills dotted all around, in the center of a vast ocean with other ringed cities off in the distance spread out onto the horizon. This was the same place we saw at the start where a young Xehanort and young Ericus played their game while talking to one another. We have arrived here at the place known as Scala ad Caelum, or Stairway to Heaven transferred in Latin, very appropriate. Now, I'm not sure this place is real, seeing that they entered it through a portal that they literally pulled out of Master Xehanort. So I don't know if this is actually the place Scala ad Caelum, or if we're in a memory from Xehanort's past, or in a dream of his, or that when they pulled out his portal, they entered like Kingdom Hearts. And I mentioned in episodes before that when you go into a Kingdom Hearts, it manifests differently for like each person that goes in there. I'm not 100% sure. It's probably one of those things. I'm leaning more towards they're not actually in the actual Scala ad Caelum, because the things that are about to happen, this place gets absolutely fucking wrecked. As the trio make their way into town, they see Xehanort slowly walking off in the distance. As they chase after him, they see another Xehanort walking in a different direction, and another, and another. Multiple Xehanorts walking multiple directions. The three heroes find themselves standing in front of one of these Xehanorts, and one by one they all transform into beings sporting fearsome cloaks, not your standard organization cloaks that we've come to know. They seem more regal, more ceremonial, and all of these figures have their faces obscured by not hoods, but terrifying metal masks, horns sprouting from the sides of them. Their forms rise into the air, and more of these entities join the gathering, until 13 in total are present. The 13 aspects of Xehanort. They disappear in a flash as Sora readies his Keyblade, and this is the kickoff fight to the boss gauntlet, to the end of this game. We're here. This is kicking off the confrontation with Master Xehanort. These are the 13 aspects of Xehanort, and you fight all of them in groups as you go throughout the town of Scala ad Caelum. You fight groups of them at a time, and they all share a collective health bar. They all may look the same, but you can identify them by the different weapons they use, which all represent a former organization member. Sora, Donald, and Goofy managed to defeat all of them. And at the bottom of a set of stairs leading higher up into the city, they see another Xehanort, but this time it's the real Master Xehanort. And he turns to address Sora, Donald, and Goofy.
Behold, this town. Once a seat of power for all Keyblade wielders. It is the nexus from which all worlds spring.
He explains a bit about the place that they are standing in, stating two interesting facts. He says that this place used to be a seat of power for all Keyblade wielders, and that it is also the nexus from which all worlds spring, meaning that it was a place for some kind of order of Keyblade wielders, and it apparently is the central point from which all the other worlds exist. Interesting stuff. But it's clear that Xehanort has some kind of connection to this place, considering that when they forced him out of the Keyblade graveyard, this is where he ended up. As he explains this, the fallen cloaked and masked figures begin to float, transforming into spheres of pure darkness one at a time that begin to fly towards Xehanort, striking him all over as he absorbs the darkness from his other selves. He states that here, he and his other selves can be one. He begins to float off the ground as a terrible dark aura surrounds him. The darkness swirls as it nearly pushes back our three heroes, and when the storm of darkness subsides, it reveals a transformed Xehanort. Remember how Terra, Aqua, Ven, and even Master Ericus had suits of armor that protected them from the darkness? Well, this appears to be Master Xehanort's suit of armor, and it's absolutely terrifying. He has gauntlets that have fearsome claws. His helmet is actually like a goat head with twisted horns. It's very like Lucifer coated in some of the artwork you may have seen of Lucifer. He wears a billowing cape and cowl as he summons his no-name Keyblade, raising it to face Sora and friends as he floats off the ground. But this will be no ordinary fight. Master Xehanort stretches out his hand and begins to manipulate the town and reality around himself as buildings begin to literally like fold in on themselves, almost like the town is folding over in half. Like if you've seen Inception with that crazy city scene, or some of the crazy stuff that happens in Doctor Strange when they go to like the mirror dimension and all the buildings start like folding in on themselves. For the initial confrontation with Xehanort, this is what Sora, Donald, and Goofy must contend with. A realm where Xehanort can bend reality to his whim, manipulate gravity and the town around him to create a truly mind-bending arena to fight him in. This fight has several phases and absolutely devastates the town around you as he throws buildings at you, literally folds the city in on itself while blasting you with powerful magic and striking you with wicked fast Keyblade combos. The most interesting aspect of this fight is that there is a portion of it that ends up taking place underwater, underneath the foundations of the city, and in the water it looks like there's an upside down tower that's submerged underneath, almost like an inverse of the city above. If you spent any time in the mobile game, you would have recognized this tower as the one where the foretellers lived in Daybreak Town. It appears that Scala ad Caelum was built upon the ruins of old Daybreak Town. Sora, Donald, and Goofy manage to defeat Xehanort, and in the following cutscene, cracks appear in his armor as it shatters, causing him to stumble back. He manages to escape into a dark portal, and Sora draws the logical conclusion that he could only have gone to the very top of Scala ad Caelum, to the top of the structure located in the very center of the city that dwarfs the other buildings around it. Our three heroes make their way to the top of the central tower for one final showdown with Master Xehanort. They arrive on the rooftop to see Master Xehanort waiting for them there. He chuckles, amused that with all they know about the power of connections, that they chose to send him here, a place he clearly has a powerful connection with. He outstretches his hand and calls to himself, not his familiar no-name Keyblade, but to Sora's surprise, he summons the Master Keyblade, the one true key. He raises it to the sky as he declares in a defiant voice, "There is one sky, one destiny," as he begins to summon the moon-shaped visage of the true Kingdom Hearts. Destati begins to play for the final time, the haunting choir that has long defined many a Kingdom Hearts soundtrack, shrieking the haunting theme that began the entire game, setting the stage for the final confrontation in an ultimate clash of ideals between Master Xehanort and Sora. Donald and Goofy both step forward to stand beside Sora, as they have since the beginning, and as the choir reaches a crescendo, Sora sets his feet, grips his Keyblade, and settles into his familiar crouching stance that we've seen him use since Kingdom Hearts 1. And here we fucking go. This is it, the last fight, the final showdown, the moment the entire series has been building towards. Let me say, for all of my doubt, all of my confusion, all of my thoughts about this game, this fight ultimately delivers. Xehanort brings the full power of the Master Keyblade to bear against Sora, teleporting through keyholes, striking him with powerful combos. At the halfway point, he raises the platform they are standing on up into the sky, their battle illuminated by the haunting glow of the one true Kingdom Hearts. Xehanort calls upon the power of Kingdom Hearts and uses it to drain all of Sora's light from him, leaving him a dark shadow of himself, similar to how he appears when he's in anti-form. Sora has to battle Xehanort in a dark form to reclaim his light, which he manages to do. Finally, you manage to deplete Xehanort's health bar, and Sora points his Keyblade at Xehanort to deliver the final blow. A beam of light erupts from Sora's Keyblade, racing towards Xehanort, where it simply shatters, ineffective on some kind of barrier surrounding him. Xehanort declares that it ends here and now, as he raises the Master Keyblade to the sky, and the shadows begin to envelop Kingdom Hearts. The light of Kingdom Hearts empowers Xehanort, and he responds to Sora's attack with a beam of light of his own. Sora can only momentarily block it before it overwhelms him. You see Sora floating in the game over animation screen, his body floating in the darkness, and it floats there. You aren't prompted to do anything. Sora just is in the dark void, floating, floating, floating. You start to hit buttons on your controller, and suddenly there is a heartbeat. You press more buttons, another heartbeat, as Sora's form begins to pulse, and another. Your combat menu comes back, and you have a reaction command. The reaction command is one we haven't seen since the early days of Kingdom Hearts. It simply reads, Trinity. A green and blue light flash in the void, and when Sora opens his eyes, he's back in the fight, still holding back Xehanort's attack, except this time, Donald and Goofy have placed their hands on him, helping him hold back the onslaught. In one defiant push, they shatter Xehanort's attack, and together summon all of their strength in one final beam that races towards Xehanort, striking him squarely in his core, finally defeating him once and for all. We shift from battle to cutscene as Xehanort drops the Master Keyblade and falls first to his knees, then collapsing on the floor of the tower they are on top of.
It's over now! You lost!
No, look. You are too late.
Xehanort manages to lift himself up, telling Sora that he's too late as the camera pans to the true Kingdom Hearts hanging overhead as it begins to glow with an ominous orange aura.
What's gonna happen?
A purge. The world will be returned whence it started. The world began in darkness, and from that darkness came light. From the light came the people, and the people had hearts. Evil burgeoned in those hearts, begetting more darkness. And that darkness spread across the world like a plague. The light, the symbol of the world's hope, was devoured by shadow, leaving nothing but ruin and utter failure. But the first light, the light of Kingdom Hearts, it can give us a new start. An empty world, pure and bright.
Sora asks Xehanort what is going to happen, and this kicks off an incredible conversation between these two characters, and I'll just put the audio in here. We get some interesting insight into Xehanort's motivations in this conversation. He claims that Kingdom Hearts will purge the old world, giving them a fresh start, a world without darkness. We kind of get a history lesson here as he recounts the story of how from the darkness came light, from light came people and hearts, and how darkness grew in the hearts of people and ended up destroying the world and swallowing the pure light in the darkness. That's why he did this. He wanted to save the world from darkness, and this was the only way he saw how. by obtaining the power of Kingdom Hearts and using its light to start a new world without the flaws he saw as failures.
It wasn't your decision to make.
Then whose was it? The world needs someone to stand up and lead. Someone strong. To stop the weak from polluting the world with their endless darkness. Someone to dictate their destiny.
And here we see so much character growth from Sora, and his response to this really highlights how polar opposite these two are from one another.
If so, you're not that person, Xehanort. A real leader knows that destiny is beyond his control, and accepts that.
You make me think of an old friend.
Our boy is just showcasing so much growth here. I know a lot of people make fun of Xehanort as this like mustache twirling villain who has a plan for everything, but this scene right here shows why he is a true antagonist, the antagonistic force in this game, and one of the best villains in any video game, period. His goals, his methods, and his actions are so diametrically opposed to everything Sora believes in and stands for, everything that makes Sora strong, everything the story of Kingdom Hearts champions and emphasizes. Sora takes strength in his bonds with others. Xehanort was so dismayed and scarred by what he saw in the world, he felt that he, and he alone, could fix it, going to any lengths to do so. This includes destroying lives, using others, forsaking all bonds and connections to people that he cared about. He would rather make 13 versions of himself than work with others to create a better world. As this conversation continues, the sky opens up and the other Guardians manage to join Sora and Xehanort. Riku tells them that Kingdom Hearts is closing on the other side, but they all manage to follow their hearts to him. And here we get a long-awaited reunion between Terra and Master Xehanort. Terra begins to approach him, pausing only when Aqua grabs his hand, afraid to lose him again. She eventually lets him go, and as Terra comes face to face with the man who used him, manipulated him, and destroyed his life, he has only one phrase to say to him. It's the same phrase that a young Ericus said to Xehanort during their chess game so many years ago.
There's more to light than meets the eye. As I told you.
You sly fox.
This shakes Xehanort to his core as Terra begins to glow and a heart emerges from inside him as the corporeal form of Master Ericus appears before all of them, demanding that Xehanort hand over the Keyblade. Ericus places a hand on the shoulder of his old friend, declaring checkmate, as we get a flashback to the scene of the two boys playing the chess game in the room, with a young Ericus declaring the same, defeating Xehanort. This scene really shows how close the friends the two of them used to be and makes the tragedy of their story all the more powerful. Xehanort was willing to give up his most important connection, his friendship with Ericus, to achieve his goals. We flash back to the current time as Xehanort opens his eyes. He realizes it's all over. Summoning his remaining strength, he walks over to Sora and holds up the Master Keyblade, bequeathing it to Sora and telling him, "Very well done." And in this moment, too, we get to have a little scene with Ericus and his former pupils, Terra, Aqua, and Ben.
Terra, Aqua, then. Forgive your foolish teacher.
Master! Master!
Master.
Then, I put you through such a harrowing experience. And Aqua, I left you with such a heavy burden. Terra, Look after them for me. Please.
Master Xehanort stands nearby, and as this touching reunion is happening, his strength begins to fade, and he starts to stumble forward, unable to stand. But he is caught by Ericus. Ericus asks Xehanort if he's ready, with Xehanort smiling and telling him yes, as they transform into their boyhood selves before vanishing into the sky in a beam of light. As they all look towards the sky, Mickey approaches Sora, telling him that it's time to close Kingdom Hearts. Sora asks for all of his friends' help as he raises the true Keyblade into the sky, and together they close Kingdom Hearts, causing it and the Master Keyblade to disappear in a bright flash of light. Somehow this causes all of them to reappear back in the Keyblade graveyard. Well, everybody except for Kairi, that is. Mickey declares that it's finally over, and this is where Sora makes a consequential decision.
It's finally over.
Oh? No.
We'll find Kairi. Let's head back to Master Yen Sid. We can figure it out.
No. I know what to do.
Sora!
My whole journey began the day I lost her. And every time I find her, she slips away again. I thought we'd finally be together, but she's out there, alone. Not for one more second.
That's right.
Thank you, Donald, Goofy. But this time, I have to go it alone.
Sora, listen. The power of waking isn't to go chase hearts around. Even if you do locate Kairi, you might never come home to us again.
I will. And we'll both be back before you know it.
Please.
Let him go, Mickey.
Riku!
His heart and his mind are made up. Now believe in him.
Yeah. Safe journey, Sora.
Thank you.
Sora is going after Kairi, and he is going to use the power of waking, just how he did when he rescued all the Guardians. This is a mistake, and Mickey knows it, echoing young Xehanort's warning that if he abuses the power of waking, he might never come back to them. Sora says he will come back, and even though Donald and Goofy offer to go with him, he says that he has to do this alone. Riku believes in his friend, telling Mickey that Sora's heart is made up and that he will be all right. Sora raises his Keyblade into the sky, opening a gate like he has done so many times. And that is the final scene we see in the Keyblade graveyard. The next scenes take us into the end credits. We first go to Disney Castle as a fireworks display is happening overhead. Mickey reunites with Minnie, Donald with Daisy, Jiminy is there as well, and Master Yen Sid and Chip and Dale show up. They stand together in the courtyard of Disney Castle and they watch the fireworks as there's clearly this celebration going on. We transition to the land of departure and we find the Wayfinder trio. They have stuck Ericus's Defender Keyblade in the ground as a marker, a monument, and in a powerful moment, they leave their Wayfinders hanging on it as they no longer need them to find each other, signifying that they'll always be together. Also, at the end of this scene, the Cheer Thief from the Final World shows up and is reunited with Ven. More on that in the DLC. We then go to Twilight Town where Axel and Roxas are sitting on the clock tower, once again enjoying a sunset together after everything that has happened. Xion joins them as well as a recompleted Saïx and Hayner, Pence, and Olette. So everybody in Twilight Town is now friends and it's happily ever after. We transition again to Radiant Garden where we see Ienzo, Evan, and Ansem the Wise working diligently on the replica that was left for them in the Keyblade Graveyard, the one that the Riku replica was in, but left for Naminé. And as they step aside, we see that it is Naminé. She wakes up and sits forward, finally her own person after all this time. We then see her out in the castle courtyard where Riku appears in the Highwind Gummy ship, reaching his hand out to her before blasting off into the sky. The final scene we get in the base game is literally everyone reunited on Destiny Islands. Syx, Axel, and Ven are playing Frisbee. Naminé and Xian are looking for shells. Riku and Terra are just kind of like running around as Aqua and Mickey talk. This is the payoff. All these characters who have suffered so much are all together after all this time, and they are happy. There's no suffering, there's no misery, no person to manipulate and take advantage of them. But this stops as all the characters look towards the palm tree that Sora, Riku, and Kairi used to sit on together. And we see something surprising. Sora and Kairi are there together. Somehow Sora must have gotten her back. They are holding hands as they sit and watch the sunset. They look at each other, and a single tear rolls down Kairi's face. As the camera pans out, something surprising happens. Sora's form becomes fuzzy, distorted, and after a slow zoom out, he completely vanishes in the bright light of the sunset, leaving Kairi sitting there by herself. And the credits roll. You didn't think it was over, did you? It couldn't be that easy. Not with Kingdom Hearts. Not with this series. There's an after credits scene. We return back to the Keyblade graveyard. We see Master Xehanort's no-name Keyblade whirling through the air before it crashes into the ground, sticking out of it like the countless other Keyblades around it. The camera lingers on it for just a moment, but shockingly, a gloved hand grabs the handle, and our point of view switches to that of a hooded figure. They pick it up, and observing it, a male voice speaks, saying, "Finally, back where it belongs," as the gazing blue eye at the tip of the Keyblade remains ever observant. As the hooded figure looks towards the horizon, he sees swirling distortions in the air, like swirling dust portals, as the camera pans out to reveal our hooded friend standing at the center of the crossroads. 4 figures approach him from these distortions in each direction. As they fade back into existence, we see the familiar forms of the foretellers approaching the hooded individual. Ira sporting the mask of the unicorn, Aced the mask of the bear, Envy the mask of the snake, and Gula the mask of the leopard. The Union leaders, the former masters from Union Cross, who were thought to have perished in the Keyblade War. Ira approaches the hooded man and speaks.
"Did you summon us back?"
Yep.
Is that you, Lucio? You look different.
Haven't heard that name in a long while. These days they call me Zigbar, but hey, whatever suits you.
Is it really you?
Yeah, but some time ago I had to cast my old form away. Been through plenty more semblances since, but it's still me underneath it all.
And as the man in the hood responds, he pulls back his hood to reveal a face. The man is in fact Lucio, the 6th apprentice of the Master of Masters, who was tasked with taking his Keyblade and observing the events that were to happen. As the man pulls back his hood, we recognize the face behind the hood, the face behind Lucio, and see that it is none other than motherfucking Zigbar. What's more, we see that Lucio, or Zigbar in his possession, has the black box that we saw in Union Cross and that Maleficent and Pete were looking for, which, speaking of Maleficent and Pete, we see they are standing on a cliff in the background observing this meeting happening as they begin to move.
What happened? Why are we here? You tell me!
I had a role to play. And after all these years, it's done.
What role?
I guess Ava didn't make it after all.
Meaning what?
I told her, clear as day, what it is I had to do.
And is that why you decided to exclude her?
As if. Ava had her own mission, and she carried it out.
I've heard enough! Luciu, what was your role?
I hope you like long stories.
As the camera zooms in on the face that we thought was Xigbar, he cracks a thin smile, and the camera pans over to the ominous black box as he says, I hope you like long stories. That is the end of that scene. That's all we see of the foretellers. And what is maybe the biggest fucking reveal, biggest twist in a game that I have ever seen. Not in a million freaking years, even though he's been there since the beginning, would I expect that Xigbar was Luciu. Xigbar, who's been there since the beginning with Master Xehanort, observing the events as they happened, as he was told to, was Luciu the whole fucking time. Fuck you, Numora, you crazy bastard. We get one more scene. One last scene, I promise. This is the last one. It's back in the room where younger Xehanort and Ericus were playing their chess game. Ericus begins to grab the pieces and set them back up, telling Xehanort that he heard about this new game. He sets 7 black pieces on Xehanort's side of the board, which just so happened to have the animals associated with each of the foretellers on them, and he sets one single piece down on his side of the board, ending the game finally. Oh my goodness, guys. We made it. That's the end of Vanilla Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, I know there's probably a lot of questions, and if you're listening to this in the future, lucky for you, you can just go to the next episode and maybe have some of those questions answered. In the next part, we're going to be touching on the Remind DLC, which deals with Sora rescuing Kairi and the consequences of his actions, and has a couple more interesting tidbits that serve to set up the future of Kingdom Hearts. But man, the twist ending at the end of the credits that Xigbar was Luciu the whole time. Remember, Luciu was the 6th apprentice of the Master of Masters, who the Master gave Luciu his Keyblade that had his eye on it, so he could go into the future and carry it into the future, and anything the eye saw, the Master could see and write down in his book of prophecies. Somehow Xehanort ended up with that Keyblade, and somehow Xigbar or Luciu just ended up following Xehanort around because he knew that that's where he needed to be with those events happening. Very interesting. But as we can see, we know the next arc, and I've told you the name of the next arc that Kingdom Hearts 4 is going to start, is the Lost Masters arc. And now it seems that we have Luciu and the former foretellers in the picture as well. We know that the Master mysteriously disappeared before the Keyblade War in Union Cross. So does this mean, could we be getting a return of the Master of Masters? Not sure. We have a lot of questions that still need answering after the conclusion of the base game. You're going to have to wait because this episode is already turning out to be 2 hours long. But bring those questions into the next episode. We'll be covering the Remind DLC and answering some of those questions, trying to figure out what Lushu's plans are, what the plans of the foretellers are, what happened to Sora, why did he disappear when he was sitting with Kairi, what happened, what did he do to get Kairi back, did he ultimately pay the consequences of his actions in abusing the power of waking and, for all the stuff that he did in restoring his friends back to life and changing the timeline, did he suffer any consequences from that? All that will be revealed in the next parts. We'll also go through all the secret reports, which will shed a little bit more light on some of the topics that don't seem to have as much information on them right now. But as for this episode, this is all I'm going to elaborate on. And I'm going to leave you with that ridiculous twist that Xigbar was Lushu the whole time. The whole time. And it makes sense. And it's kind of brilliant. And Nomura can't have been planning this out the whole time because, oh my god, what insane. After Kingdom Hearts 3, we've got more of the Union Cross game, and we have Kingdom Hearts Dark Road and Melody of Memory, so we'll learn more about what's going on with Lushu and all this stuff in those games, and we're clearly setting up for Kingdom Hearts 4 where all this stuff is going to get to be resolved. So, yeah, I'm exhausted. That was a sprint to the conclusion of this game, and my thoughts will be heard in the next couple parts about ultimately what I feel and some explanations of some things and where I think the series is ultimately going. But for now, I'm going to sign off. I recorded this late at night, guys. It's midnight. I'm really tired. I'm going to sign off. My brain is all Kingdom Hearts burned out. So with that being said, I'll leave you with my traditional closings for these episodes. It's not just the story of video games, it's the story of you. And always remember, may your heart be your guiding key.